Hello and welcome to another session of this 30 days of devotion with Pastor Alex. I hope you've been blessed so far. And I want you to continuously share with someone, invite someone to be a part of this. I know definitely they are going to be blessed. How do you maintain your integrity and identity as a Christian in the world today? How do you do that? Maybe you find yourself in a school, find yourself at a workplace, in a business or marketplace that seems like it's quite difficult to maintain your status, to maintain your identity and your values as a Christian. And that's what I'm going to speak to today. The first thing is this: know who you are. There's a classic example in the Bible of a man called Daniel who, as an Hebrew man, found himself in Babylon. And in that dispensation, Babylon was a pagan country, so they did not subscribe to the God whom Daniel was familiar with. And so it will happen that Daniel and his friends, they were chosen because of their wisdom and their intellect to stand before the king. And so you find this story in context in Daniel chapter 1 from verse 1 to 8. Now something remarkable happened, that Daniel and his friends, they requested that they would be fed with some kind of food which was different from what the king had organized for them. And Daniel said that I cannot defile myself. And because of that, they chose to be fed differently. Now, one of the remarkable things that you can note in that story is that when they got to Babylon, their names were changed. Their Jewish names were changed and they were given Babylonian names. And here is one thing you have to understand about names. A name identifies with where a person comes from or where the person belongs to. And that's why when you hear a name like Adebayo, you can easily tell the person is Nigerian. When you hear a name like Kofi, you can tell the person is a Ghanaian. When you hear a name like Smith, it's more likely the person is an English person. When you hear Smith, it's more likely the person is German, right? And so a person's name, it's synonymous with where they come from, their values, their culture, and their belief system. And so when Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians change these guys' names, in a sense, they were changing their identity. There was a day that I was watching TV with my wife, and then there's a case that came up in Ghana about a guy who faked the Guinness World Record or so. And so when the guy's name came in, he was something Smith, Chef Smith, that's what it was called. And my wife said, oh, he's Fanti. Why? Because that name is synonymous with Fanti people, right? So when a person's name is changed, their identity is also changed. But that did not change Daniel. Although their names were changed, they still kept to the identity of the God that they were serving. And that's what you should note, that you might be a banker, you might be an accountant, you might be a nurse. Everybody knows you as a nurse. Everybody knows you as an accountant or a data analyst. But beyond that, know that you're a child of God. Know who you truly are. You are a child of God. And the Bible tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 20, that we are ambassadors of Christ. And so as much as we live in this world, we are not of the world. We belong to Christ. We are representatives of the heavenly civilization. And our purpose on earth here is to ensure that the nations, the tribes, and everything on earth here conforms to the civilization of Christ, including your workplace. So when you go to that office, when you go to that hospital, when you go to that school, beyond your name tag, beyond your job description, there is an agenda, and that agenda is to represent Christ. And you must never forget that. You must never forget that. When you're conscious of that, that's why, that's when everybody is doing or they are going a certain route, you know this is not for me. As an accountant, they bring you the balance sheet and then they tell you, why don't we put 10? Why don't we just massage the figures? You can tell, no, that's not how I was trained in church. That's not how Christ taught me. The Bible said, if you have so learned of Christ, live so. So there's a certain learning that we have in Christ. You must maintain your dignity, your integrity, and your identity as a Christian, no matter where you find yourself. In that school, when everybody is doing things that does not conform to the system of God, you know you're not supposed to join because you're of Christ. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. The second thing is this: have strengthened convictions. Strengthened convictions. Daniel said, I cannot defile myself with the king's food, because he knew that the king's food had been submitted to idols, and he knew that he was a representative of God in Babylon. So he knew that doing what the Babylonians are doing would be a defilement of his nature and his being. So he said, I can't defile myself. In the face of opposition, can you stand and defend what you believe? Do you have strengthened convictions? Joseph in Potiphar's house, when Potiphar's wife wanted to lie with him or sleep with him, he said, I cannot sin against my God. He had strong convictions, knowing that fornication is a sin against God. Maybe if it was in our world today, someone would say, that scholarship, they've seen how nice I am, what a farm boy I am, what a nice lady. And that's why many people find themselves in trouble. That you went to a workplace and then the managing director, who you know is a married man with children, found interest in you, does not make you more beautiful and attractive. You should know that this person is trying to take something away from your destiny. Yes. The fact that a lot of girls are DMing you on Instagram doesn't mean that you're a hot cake. Doesn't mean that you're a hot cake. Have strengthened convictions. Have strong convictions and stick to it. Stick to it, because it's by sticking to those convictions that people would actually know who you are. In the case of Daniel, when the king said, at the sound of the trumpet, everyone should bow to this graven image, and they did not bow, they cast them in the fire, and they did not burn. The king now said, now everybody should recognize and serve the God of this man, Daniel. The next thing is this: have an unwavering faith in God. Know that God is your source. Listen, God is your source. Well, in this line of business, if you do not drink and socialize at a certain level, you're not going to get any form of job or market or recommendation. What God cannot give you, let no man give you. God is my source. He says promotion does not come from the east, the south, or the west, but it comes from God. So know that in your line of business, in your job, know that God is your source, and God is the one who will promote you and advance you as long as you're doing what is required of you naturally, in all sense. The last thing, be diligent with whatever you're doing. Be diligent with whatever you're doing. If you're a student, you're a business person, if you're a worker, be diligent. The Bible said, let your light so shine before men that they will see, acknowledge, and glorify your Father in heaven. Whatever you're doing, do it with all sense of diligence so that you'll be productive and have results. You cannot talk about your Jesus if your results stink. You cannot talk about your Jesus if when everyone gathers, you are the one who is less performing. Listen to me. If God is the God of creativity whom you believe in, then you must hold yourself to higher standards. In fact, your standards must be higher than all the rest. You must have higher standards. And whilst you do all of this, you create an atmosphere for people to recognize who you are and to recognize your identity as a believer. I hope this blessed you. And if there's someone you want to share this with, go ahead and share.